Good evening and welcome to the January Cabinet meeting. Happy New Year to everybody here and everybody watching online. Before we move to the formal agenda tonight, I wanted to just take a moment to update colleagues on the issue of the English Devolution White Paper and actions and activities that have happened since our last Cabinet meeting. You'll be aware that there was a deadline set by Central Government for last Friday on the issue of priority place status. Myself and the leader of Kent County Council, Roger Goff, co-signed a letter supporting our region of Medway and Kent being part of that priority place programme. That's not a decision for us, of course. That is a decision for Central Government. We believe that the decision on that will be with us by the end of January, and we look forward to seeing what they say on that matter. I also wrote a separate letter on the issue of democratic processes between now and the likely timetable for new unitary authorities for our region. Again, that's in the public domain, and I know Roger, obviously, who has elections this year, has also written as well. We take a contrary view on the principle, but actually on the issue that I have the greatest concern about is any council having a potential 7-year mandate. That wouldn't be the case even on the expected timetable I think that we will have of a new council for our community being up and running in May 2028. We're taking a paper to full council next week, so thanks to officers who have worked on that in very quick timescales. And we held in this very room last week a really helpful all-member briefing. Over 40 members were present at that. I thought it was the council at its very best. Good questions from both corporate management team members, but also elected members from all groups and no group. So very pleased, and again, a broad consensus on where we are. There was nobody speaking out about us applying to be in the priority place programme. One of the recommendations in next week's report will be setting up a cross-party working group on the issue of devolution and local government reorganisation, and I look forward to working with colleagues across the political groups and, of course, with hard-working officers as we look to see the potential positives, but also recognise some of the challenges that may be there for this. The final thing I would say is there will be some public consultation happening very specifically on the issue of devolution if we are selected to be a priority place. That will be centrally led by government, but we, of course, along with the other 13 councils across our region, will be standing ready to support that. I absolutely look forward to hearing what residents have got to say on that. And in due course, there will be consultation on the local government reorganisation for this place. We know whatever happens, because of the parameters, Medway Council in its pure form at the moment is not big enough to continue as a council at the end of this process. That's not to say that we will not continue in delivering services for our communities up until the very last day. There'll be good services, we'll continue with the projects and programmes we've got in place, and residents can rest assured that, of course, we're playing our part, having our say, being a key contributor and one of the 2 signatories, for example, to the most recent letter to government from across our whole region. But we've absolutely got our eye on the ball, as you'll see tonight from our agenda, on a number of key programmes that we committed to as an administration coming into power, and indeed new programmes that have come as a result perhaps of additional funding from central government since July. So pleased to update colleagues on that, and of course we'll have a wide debate on that, no doubt, next Thursday at full council. I'll move to the substantive agenda. Item 1 is the apologies for absence. I've got apologies tonight from Harinder. Records of decisions. Are colleagues happy for me to sign the record of decisions of the 17th of December? Thank you. I'll then move to item 3, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. Nina.
Thank you. With regards to agenda item 6, I'm a trustee of Second Chance Charity that is mentioned in the food strategy. However, I have taken advice and I don't consider that I have any pecuniary or OSI in the matter. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification on the record. Any other member? No, thank you. That moves us then to our first substantive item for decision making, and that's Fostering Fees and Allowance Policy 2025. Adam, over to you.
Thank you, Vince. Yes, it's my pleasure to put forward the Fostering Fees and Allowance Policy for 2025. It's the first time that this has been reviewed in its entirety since 2021. That recruitment and retention remains firmly on Medway's agenda. Nationally and also locally, the demand for foster carers remains undiminished. In fact, it's increasing. So the fostering service is, through this policy, is seeking to change not just the policy, but the wider practice and organisational changes around the service by increasing the supply of like fostering placements, by recruiting new carers as well as retaining those who are currently registered within Medway. So I refer members to like Appendix A, which goes into detail on the report, just to talk through some of the notable like highlights. So amongst those highlights are that there's, it's a scheme based on a defined maintenance element to meet the children's needs, and a separate reward fee based on the child's age and needs in the form of a tiered structure. It also consists of an entitlement to 16 days paid leave for foster carers with children in the fostering home, or up to 24 days respite for foster carers approved for children with disabilities. It also is going to continue an annual skills and services payment based on the length of service. There will be an annual council tax contribution of £600 per household, an hourly rate of £11.94 per hour for providing support to the fostering service, and a reduction in the threshold for paying mileage to carers, which is currently 700 miles per month before you can qualify for that. That's been reduced to 200 miles per month. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'd like to move the reports and get these updated fostering fees and like allowances for our foster carers. Just to say that I was joined by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Douglas Hernandez at the recent event to thank our existing foster carers, and I was pleased to, with him, present like certificates to foster carers who have been working a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and in one instance 30 years. So I'd like to thank them for their dedication, and I look forward to us being able to continue with our existing foster carers and recruiting new, and hopefully not losing them, because competition remains really high. Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Vince.
Thank you very much, Adam. I've got Tracy.
Thank you for the report, Adam. It's really important that we review the fees and the allowances for our foster carers. They do such an important job, and they're hard to come by. So it's very important that we're offering a competitive package to make sure that we retain our excellent foster carers that we have in Medway, but also that we attract new ones. Agencies are actively recruiting in our area. We want our Medway children to be able to stay in Medway if at all possible, and that means that we need to be able to attract foster carers to come and work with Medway Council. And so I'm very pleased to see these proposals so that we remain competitive and we can attract more foster carers to work with our Medway children here. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luella.
Exactly as Tracy said. Literally the same, Tracy. A lot of work's obviously gone into reviewing this report to update the policy and make the offering more competitive, particularly with, as Tracy's highlighted there, the agencies that are in our area seeking our foster carers. With the increase in need, because there is a significant increase in need, we obviously need to recruit more foster carers and, as Tracy said, retain the ones we have already. And more importantly, keep the children, Medway children, in Medway, or as close to as possible, where they're closer to their familiar places and people, friends and schools. So I fully support this as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Teresa?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Adam, and full support from me as well. I think what this does is show the foster carers we've got now and foster carers of the future how much we value them.
We do.
And it takes a pragmatic and realistic view of the cost that fostering incurs and rewards people appropriately for their time and commitment that they give to Medway children who need a loving and supportive home.
Yeah.
So full support for you and to officers for recommending this, and our huge thanks to everybody who's a foster carer. And, you know, I'd like to think that the foster carers that we have now can play their part in working with us to encourage other people to come forward, because if you're in a position to be able to foster a child, it's a very rewarding way to actually contribute to our community.
Yep. Good.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other members, so before I come back to you, Adam, absolutely agree that this is critical, and that it's a slightly awkward phrase, but there is a market. There is a market, and therefore we need to be the market leaders to say to particularly families in Medway, we want you to work with us as your local authority to make sure that those nearly 500 children in care are getting the best support that they can, and wherever practically possible, remain here within the Medway community. It's best for them as we move forward in the vast majority of cases. We often say children matter in Medway, and that is true, but the people who care for children matter in Medway as well. And this report tonight shows loud and clear this Cabinet takes that seriously. So again, as others have said, thanks to you for your personal work on this, Adam, as portfolio holder. I know you've been working closely with officers, and importantly, listening to the voice of those who are carrying out this diligent role day in, day out for our vulnerable young people. Adam, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Vince. And just to say that I've been very pleased to attend events when we do formally thank the foster carers, but also I'd like to thank the service for instituting the practice whereby myself, Councillor Vince Maple, Richard Hicks, we get invited periodically to go out on the front line, meet the foster carers in their homes with their children, and that's a much better way, as well as obviously checking up on their safeguarding, being able to see the excellent work that the social workers are doing, but also to see firsthand the nature of that work on behalf of all the other members of Medway Council, because we're all corporate parents. So thank you, Vince. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Adam. Are those recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. Let's move on to the next item, agenda item 5, the Regulator of Social Housing Inspection Outcome. Luella, over to you.
Thank you, Vince. Just to give a bit of an opening background, in April 2024, the Regulator of Social Housing was given new powers to proactively inspect all social housing landlords with 1,000 homes or more, as part of a continuing effort to drive up standards within the social housing sector. All landlords with over 1,000 homes will be inspected over a 4-year period, and once each inspection is carried out, a judgment is issued, and you're given a grading, and they range from C1 to C4, with C1 being the highest and C4 the lowest. We were the first council in the South East to have a programmed inspection, with the team being notified at the end of May 24 that the regulator intended to carry out the inspection of our landlord services throughout the period between June and September. So the inspection consisted of providing relevant documentation, a scoping document. There was a 2-day on-site inspection, including interviews with officers, senior management, the leader, myself, and our representatives from our tenants panel. And over 200 pieces of documentation was submitted as evidence for consideration. So that was all in advance of the visit, and then afterwards, so on November the 27th, the regulatory judgment was published, with Medway Council being awarded a C2, which was the second highest grade out of the 4 consumer standards. So it's a positive outcome, and quoting from the regulatory judgment, Medway Council demonstrated through the inspection that it understands where it needs to make improvements, and we have assurances that it's addressing the areas of weakness identified. So they clearly outline that we know where we're weak and we know what we've got to do about it. So this report provides an overview of the inspector's observations which supported the regulator judgment. The areas of weakness identified by the regulator, excluding one, had already been identified within the team with action plans already set up and put in place. So the team was prepared. So there's ongoing engagement with the regulator on a monthly basis, which it's hoped will be stepped down to quarterly as the team continue to work with them to provide assurances. So I want to express a huge thank you to the officers and the tenants panel for all their ongoing hard work, not to mention the work involved with the inspection, so all the work beforehand, during the inspection, and all that work, you know, to include the evidence and the on-site engagement. It was huge. So thanks for that, and also thanks for the ongoing engagement as we continue to offer a really good service to our tenants. So I'll leave it there and pause for any comments anyone's got.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. I've got Simon and Tracy.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you, Luella, for the report, and thank you to the staff. This is really quite an achievement, actually, to be honest. This is a new thing that's come out on regulation, and I think we've performed exceptionally well. I mean, as I'm a member of the HRH governance group, so I do see the reports and I can see how much hard work goes into it. And it's not just that, it's the dedication and almost the love of the job that the staff show, which you feel, and that comes through by having the tenants engaged in the process as well. There's a really good relationship between the staff and the tenants and the people who this is their homes, and we're doing our best to look after them. I think one of the things that I find is that in this is that it's so refreshing to go into that environment and see how engaged people really are. So this is a real commitment and testament to the hard work of everyone involved. And I like the way that one of the strong elements that comes out from the reports that we've had on this is this commitment to continuous improvement. The recognition, as Luella just said, that we do know there are areas which we need to do better at to get that C1 next time, but it's that sort of continuous improvement commitment that's definitely through all the way through the report. That's a strong thing that comes out. So huge thanks to everyone involved, and it's a really good result. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Tracy?
I'd like to say thank you to you, Luella, and to officers who've clearly worked really hard and should be proud of the report that they've got. The areas for improvement that were identified were no surprise, which is a really good sign that the team knows where they are, knows what still needs to be done. And what I particularly wanted to comment on is how detailed the improvement plan is, that they've taken all of these aspects which have been mentioned in the report, and there's a really clear path to improvement in here with some actions already completed. So I want to say well done to the team, and I can see that this is just going to move on and we'll be getting that C1 next time round, so thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I can't see anybody else indicating, so before I come back to you, Luella, I want to give my personal thanks to you, actually. You were, at the point of this inspection, a very new cabinet member. And I know that you were taking over from a cabinet member who'd put things into a good place politically, and you've continued to take that work and take it to the next level. So my personal thanks to you. I saw you in action during the inspection, and I know your personal dedication and commitment to making sure residents have the best possible housing they can from us as a landlord shone throughout that. So that's really clear to me, and I'd say that publicly 100 times over if I had to, because it's very, very clear. You also happen to have some fantastic officers, not least the head of housing, Bex Wilcox, who again did a great job during that particular inspection. Again, I know she would be the first to say it's a team effort, but absolutely her leadership there, again, still relatively new in her role in the grand scheme of things, was powerful. When it comes to these inspections, I think for me, one thing I always want to see, and we've seen it in other inspections and ones we will talk about in the future, this administration, this council, under our leadership, is never surprised when we have these inspections. When people feed back to us, we know not everything is perfect. Things can't be perfect with the resources we have, with some of the challenges that we inherited, with some of the challenges that are just there in the different parts of the world that a unitary authority looks after. But if we know that and we know how to try and go on that journey to make things better, I think people kind of shining that light back to us and saying, yes, there are areas for improvement. Yes, you need to keep doing what you're doing, but you know that. I think that sends a clear message both to the inspectorate, but frankly, more importantly, to the residents of Medway, that this administration, working closely, senior managers in this cabinet and the workforce more generally, they get it. They get it. Whether it's this or whether it's, again, we'll talk about obviously the CQC report that we've had very recently will come to this cabinet in due course as well. It's quite clear through those processes that we have that understanding. So I hope that gives reassurance to residents generally, whether it's housing or any other service, that we are on top of our briefs collectively. But on this issue, I certainly recognise that. The final thing I'm going to say before I hand back to yourself to close this item is recognising the voice of the tenants. My goodness, we are very lucky in Medway to have some tenants who give huge amounts of their time personally because they care about not themselves, they don't care about themselves and their house. It's about the concept of working with us as a council to be the very best landlord they can be. So again, I would give my thanks very publicly to those individuals who, either through the governance group, through the tenants group and others, just sharing their views, both where we're doing well, but importantly where we could be better. So huge thanks to them. And I know, again, for the inspection, they gave a lot of their time and energy to, you know, share their stories, share where we're doing well, share where we could do better. So I'm pleased with this. There's more work to do, but we know what that work is, and we're already getting on with it. Luella, back to you.
Thank you all for your comments. You're absolutely right. The dedication of Bex Wilcox, the whole team, she will be the first one to say it is a team effort. And also the tenants panel, led by Maxine and Mick. They do a fantastic job on behalf of all of the other tenants that they represent. So that all combined shows a bit of dedication, or a lot of dedication, and self-awareness, the fact that we knew. But before I finish, I just wanted to highlight some of the comments made in the report by the regulator about Medway Council. Sorry, I've got paper tonight because I don't have a laptop at the moment. The outcomes, the comments are, the outcomes across the main areas of health and safety compliance are good, and performance is actively monitored by senior officers and councillors. There are meaningful opportunities for tenants to influence and scrutinise Medway Council strategies, policies and services, and while some areas of tenant engagement are still being developed, Medway Council is committed to building on its existing arrangement to support tenants in influencing and scrutinising its services. So I ask Cabinet to agree the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luella. Are those recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to agenda item 6, Medway Food Strategy. Teresa, over to you.
Thank you, Vince. And before I start, can I please thank the authors of the report from our public health team, Julia Thomas, Fiona Evans, Olu Obadare and Zach Shinwari, who have shown consistent, fantastic enthusiasm for this strategy and held events all over our towns to spread the word. So our vision is to create an environment that supports sustainable access to affordable, healthy food and improve knowledge about nutrition, along with cooking and growing skills for everybody, so that we work together to build healthier communities and a better future for Medway. And the strategy embraces a whole load of things that have been happening, and I want especially as well to mention the work that our climate response team have done, the help that we've had from environmental engagement officers and from business development and adult education, because this has really been a cross-party effort, a cross-party, I hope, but a cross-council effort to make sure that the food strategy is the very best that it can be. You'll see in the strategy all of the work that we've been doing about offering cookery classes, both in schools, to families, in our family hubs, the work that's been going on in community gardens, work jointly with the Soil Association, training teachers to do growing programs to make sure that that fits in with the curriculum and enthuses people, and then culminating in the autumn with our food strategy special event, bringing all the partners together, including people in the voluntary sector. This is incredibly important for Medway. It's part of our prevention agenda, the prevention of poor health. It's part of our efforts to make sure that fairness and sustainability and affordable food is available to everybody. And it includes, and will do even more over time, food businesses. So it was really great to welcome a farmer from Court Farm in Halling when we had our food strategy meeting, telling us about the changes that he had made on the farm with growing food to make it more sustainable and less environmentally damaging, and to bring together all kinds of people who work every day, including those who work in food banks, to make sure that as many people as possible in Medway get access to affordable, healthy food. So we're going to carry on with this. It isn't stopping just because we've got a strategy. We'll carry on building on it. It involves anybody who wants to be involved, including people like allotment holders, including lots and lots of schools who these days have got community gardens and are being helped by mums and dads to make those gardens into more sustainable places. It's put its reach into our parks. In the park in my ward, we've got a community herb bed now where people, the Friends group can come along. We've planted herbs. It's going really well. People can cut and come again to make their food tastier. And our public health team, particularly this year, are going to focus on oral health, keeping our teeth healthy right from the very start in life, so that people can enjoy sustainable, healthy food. And that is absolutely critical. And that means as well helping people access dentists as well as keeping their own teeth clean. So it's an all-encompassing strategy. It reaches right across the council. It's incredibly important towards our prevention agenda, and absolutely critically, it's about tackling those in food poverty and giving them a much fairer deal. And through our holiday activity programme as well, these themes have run through. So in all of the holiday activity events, we've had cookery classes, we've had recipe ideas, we've had bags of fruit and veg for people to take home, and we will continue to do that so that nobody feels scared about being able to cook a meal from scratch, and we'll be working with everybody to make little pledges, I hope, in the coming year about the way that they're going to carry on the things that they learn in all of our classes. So I do commend it to you. It's a great strategy. It reaches across our whole community, and it's got the potential to increase the health, well-being and fairness and equality for our community in Medway.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. I've got Alex first, and then Simon and Nina. Alex.
Thanks, Vince. I'm sort of very pleased to see this report, and it made me think about a comment by a member of the opposition made at a private meeting. So we'll follow Chatham House rules. I'll tell you what he said, but I won't say who said it. And what they said was that you can't change anything, or you can't make anything happen in opposition. And I thought of what a ridiculous statement that was at the time, and actually this food partnership and this food strategy demonstrates just what you can do in opposition, because I don't know if Vince remembers, but it was a pretty auspicious meeting, full council, on Tuesday the 25th of April 2019. And there were two proposals from the Labour group that night. One from Vince, which resulted in the council declaring a climate emergency. Well, 6 years on, and with what's going on the other side of the world right now, I think we can see just how prescient that was, and how important that step has been in informing what the council does. But the other motion proposed by a Labour councillor that night was one that was brought forward by myself, which was proposing the Cooperative Party's model motion on food justice. This is a long-standing campaign for those of us who are proud Labour and cooperative councillors. And the Cooperative Party has published many reports on the subject, including one called Beyond Food Banks. And I think that that's absolutely what this strategy does. It goes way beyond food banks. It goes way beyond some of the less helpful comments that were made by the then administration in response to that food justice motion, where there seemed to be this view that our role as councillors, as people who know things, was to tell poor people how to be better at being poor, how to tell people in poverty how they should be managing their finances a little bit better, and they should just be, you know, cooking up some soup and doing all those things that if only they were a little bit as smart as those councillors were, they wouldn't have these problems. Well, you know, the fact is, it's important that we take these practical steps. It's important that people have knowledge of healthy eating and about how to cook, and those are really important life skills, and it's brilliant that we are doing that right from the start and from breastfeeding onwards, that we actually are telling people what they can and should be doing. But, you know, it absolutely isn't that sort of pious approach that I absolutely sort of deprecate, because the reason people struggle to eat healthily is because so many of them, too many of them, don't have enough money. They don't earn enough. They are paid poverty wages. They are double jobbing, which means that they don't have time to cook those meals and do all those things that the great and good are so often want of telling them to do. So I'm really proud of this as a piece of work, the establishment of the partnership, which happened in spite of the previous administration and because of what even in 2019 was an administration in waiting, and one that has shown leadership on this issue, on climate change, and continues to provide that political leadership and the fantastic work done by the officers that Teresa has mentioned in this, and through things like the holiday activity and food programme, so important for so many people across Medway who, you know, are unfortunately in a situation where they don't have enough money to eat in a healthy way. And, you know, I absolutely would, you know, sum up by pointing out that the only growth industry under the previous government was food banks, and over a course of 14 years they turned from being something that was the exception to something that was all too common a sight on our streets. And I think ultimately, as the ambition of this shows, the goal should be that we get to a place where everyone has enough to eat, everyone can afford the food that they need, and that food banks become a thing of the past.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex, for those contributions there. Simon and then Nina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you very much to the teams who put this together, because it's a multiple effort, really quite incredible. I think, I mean, Alex has just highlighted a few issues, but and he mentioned the word food bank at the end there, and the fact that food banks have become an established part of our community, I think is just shocking. I mean, it's appalling, really. And you look at some of the numbers about how many millions of adults are struggling to feed themselves, and then you hear about people who are having to pay a percentage of their wage in order to get paid, which is bizarre. You know, how did that happen? How did food bank become normal? How do you have to actually pay a percentage of your wage in order for it to go into your bank account? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And we're in a very difficult position in our society at the moment where that's become normalised. And those are the changes that are going to happen across the board if we are going to bring about more equality and improve people's health and well-being and all the issues that we're trying to tackle here. But as regards to food, I think with this report, this is a step change. It really is addressing some of those issues. It's looking at it in detail, and it's a really beautiful example of co-production or co-creation or whatever, working in partnership. I mean, the target's to establish appropriate and representative partnership structure, to engage with the community and partners. That lies at the heart of this report, which is why it's so important, because it's the voice of the community and the voice of the community being allowed to be heard in this instance. So that's really brilliant to see. There's a lot of work to be done around also what kind of food people are eating as well. You know, we have the obesity crisis across the country. We see it all the time, and that's got to be addressed, particularly in our young people. And that's in this report. It's great to see. But I like also the way that it fits, and I used the word seamlessly the other day, but I love the word seamlessly because this fits into our strategies as a council. This is part of our One Medway plan, it's part of what we're trying to do, and it fits in with all that. It mentioned the climate agenda is part and parcel of this, as is all the other stuff that we want to do about healthy living generally. So that's really encouraging to see. And one other thing that the kind of food process that's here, it's a cultural change we're going to bring about here. As a result of this report and the strategy and the work that's going to go on in coming years on this, we will have to change cultural thinking about how we eat and what we eat and that kind of thing. But in the middle of all that, it also means a reduction in waste as well. So it has an impact on our waste services. Getting this right gets it right across the board. So it's really encouraging to see, and I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Nina?
Thank you, Vince. I also welcome this report. And I've seen, as I'm sure everybody here in Medway, how hard the Medway Public Health team work in terms of reaching out to the community, being there at all the community events and doing their own events as well, going out, speaking to community members, doing such fantastic work as well. And it is really great to see that over time, they have only gone from strength to strength in terms of building that food partnership network. And the report clearly outlines the risks of not having a food strategy, especially in places like Medway as well, where there is food inequality, areas of deprivation. So if there is a strategy with regards to improving community health across the board and having that one Medway vision being applied across the community, then it absolutely makes sense to have the food strategy. And I did also want to commend the team for the comprehensive consultation process. It again goes to show a lot of partnership working, and I absolutely support where we can create an environment that supports not just sustainable but also equitable access to affordable and healthy eating for our children as well as the adults. So thank you to everybody who's been involved in producing this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina. Before I go back to Teresa to sum up the item, I think I was very pleased to be at the session just a couple of hundred metres down the road, and it was great to hear the kind of lived experience of someone from the farming community, really powerful. And actually, I know he was having conversations with many others in the room to say, actually, how can we move some of these issues forward? I think we talk often about a one Medway approach. This report is a one Medway approach in its purest form. Clearly, people leading on this, and I absolutely recognise the brilliant role that the public health team play in this, and certainly recognise the individuals that Teresa mentioned at the start of this item. But it's a whole council system, and actually it's a whole Medway system to move some of these issues forward. So, for example, schools have got a critical role to play in this. Now, I'm really positive about the new breakfast offer that will be coming, thanks to this Labour government nationally. Compare that to 40 years ago when perhaps somebody was taking away milk. Those are the 45 years ago. Those are the options. You know, politics is about choices. So this is absolutely a living document, and things will continue and progress positively. But it is absolutely a great example of people working together. And as others have said, look, I don't wish there to be a single food bank in Medway. We know, because of the Unison Trade Union research, there are Medway Council staff having to access the food bank. That's shameful. And what makes that even worse is there are some politicians who are currently saying, don't give, in literature going out indoors across Medway, don't give staff a pay rise. Well, respectfully, they're completely wrong. We've got to do everything we can to ensure hard-working council officers are getting a real terms pay rise, and we will bring that forward through the processes here. That's important because you've got to react accordingly when you hear council staff are going to food banks. Ignoring that, which I think the previous administration did, and clearly they're continuing of that view, is really unhelpful, bluntly. I could say a lot more, but I'm not going to here. I may say some more on that next Thursday. So look, and Teresa, I know you've, as our deputy leader, as our lead for public health and adults' health more generally, you've taken a huge interest in this. Conversations out there with voluntary sector organisations, private sector organisations, and the public health team, who are phenomenal. Their energy levels to be at so many community events, having those conversations, encouraging, nudging, saying to people, just what about that one thing? And this report again shows how those things can manifest themselves across the variety of ways that this food strategy will improve the lives of residents of Medway. Teresa, back to you.
I know that everybody involved in the food strategy right across the community are going to appreciate the support that you've given them, because that's as important as anything. Our ambitions haven't stopped. We've got a bronze award for sustainable food. We're hoping to go for silver. So we'll continue to be ambitious. And I think what you said, Alex, is extremely important, that there is a lot of loose talk around food. No question of that. I was very alarmed when I heard that someone had voted for Lee Anderson to be an MP, 30p Lee, as he's known, because he was on the record for saying he thought that everybody could make a meal for 30p, and what was all the fuss about? There was too much giving away food and helping people with food banks. It shows how manifestly out of touch that person is. One of the really good things about the report is that there's an in-depth survey in here telling us who are most likely to suffer food insecurity. If you're younger, if you're a man, if you're on a lower income, if you're less educated, if you live in a single-parent household, and if you live in a household with children, you are more likely to have trouble finding sustainable, healthy food. That's shameful. This is about changing that and making sure that we do absolutely everything we can to stop that happening in Medway. Thank you for mentioning the breakfast clubs, Vince, because this strategy starts pre-conception. One of our really special pushes is to get people who are thinking about having a family, thinking about how to have a healthy pregnancy, starting life the best way you can with supporting people to breastfeed, because there are all kinds of influences and some of them actually quite determined to push people away from that. So one of our team, one of the things that our public health team does is to support people through that very early start in life. And having a good breakfast to start the day is brain food. You're going to be a lot more successful at work or at school if you have a good breakfast, and that's why it's so important to the government. So we'll be supporting schools to actually do that and to make sure that the learning and curriculum support we can give through the food strategy reaches into those breakfast clubs and get children making an easy, healthy breakfast for themselves. So we're looking forward very much to being involved in that. I want also to commend some of our early years settings who've stepped into this arena, and we've been able to give awards for those who are consistently producing healthy meals, and they're playing their part in making sure that parents know how to make affordable, healthy meals for their children, and obviously providing healthy meals at the early years settings as well. There's a long way to go. I wouldn't say from this strategy that everybody in Medway who needs to has got access to sustainable, healthy food, but we've made lots of steps and strides in the right direction, and we'll continue to do that. So I appreciate everyone's support for the strategy and that cross-cutting council support for this is absolutely critical, and long may it continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. That moves us on to the next agenda item, which sits with me, which is the Provisional Government Settlement 25-26. I want to move the recommendations as laid out in the paper. I also want to place on record my thanks to the finance team, and in particular to Katie Durkin. As colleagues will know, as residents will know who are tuning in, if you look at the when this was received by us and the date we're on today, to turn this around into a report that has gone through all the relevant governance is remarkable. So huge thanks to Katie and the team who have made that possible. Obviously, we'll talk about this a lot more when we get to the budget meeting in February. I would say a couple of broad statements and then very happy to hear from colleagues. It's good news. It's good news. And I think if you look at the table, particularly the table number 2 on page 158, you can see there quite clearly the positive impact that this report brings to our budget situation. Obviously, we know that there are still challenges ahead. There are still difficult decisions to make, and we've been discussing those. We had a very positive meeting just last night, working with senior managers as a team of 25 to look at this year's budget and indeed next year's budget and indeed the year after that. That's how far ahead we're looking. We're not taking our foot off the pedal when it comes to financial sustainability. We're doing everything we can, improving our internal methods of making decision making and having information readily available. So we've got that there. I'd put out a couple of areas in particular. The homelessness grant, I'm sure Luella might wish to talk about that in particular. I think there was a general concern across local government that actually this could, because of the challenges of central government, be reduced or potentially even withdrawn. We've seen £1 million extra, £1 million extra coming to tackle that issue here in Medway. And we know it's an issue. We know there is challenges there, both for street homelessness and the wider social sofa surfing and the other issues attached to homelessness. So all that we can do to prevent that will be there. And again, additional resources from our government. And again, colleagues will see in particular the extended producer responsibility. That's again, as Alex kindly reminded colleagues, that goes back to the issue of climate change. Ultimately, we want to have a sustainable situation. So ensuring through central government that those levies that the industry around packaging are paying are coming directly to the front line of local government, I think is very, very helpful. So we continue to work hard on the budget as we move forward. That work is continuing. We've still got work to do. We're not through this year, but we're very close to that. I think we're in a strong position. The information we shared with overview and scrutiny at the end of last year was more than perhaps they've ever had before. And of course, we'll take the information from all of that and indeed from this report when we get to the Cabinet meeting on the February the 11th, and then obviously the subsequent full council meeting later on in February. I'll pause at that point, happy to hear contributions and questions from colleagues. I've got Luella, then Teresa.
Just to say what you said, really, the homelessness, the additional homelessness funding from government is greatly needed. The pressures are still there. It's not just homeless people on the street that are affected, it's people being evicted, families being evicted from their tenancies, sofa surfing. It's not just visible homelessness. So it's really needed and well received. And our original Rough Sleepers initiative was due to come to an end in March, so this is timely as well. That's all, Vince. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Like Luella, I'm very grateful for an uplift of nearly 1.2 million compared to our projections in the draft budget for adult social care. And I think what this report does is show the government's commitment to making things better for councils, because overall our settlement is in a better place than we expected it to be at this stage in the government cycle. So there's been a real move forward. And I think the promises of multi-year settlements and getting information much earlier are actually being demonstrated in what we've seen this year. There's a long way to go. Like Luella, it's great to have that extra money, but absolutely we need it. The demand is still pouring through the door. But together with our local ambitions and plans, these increased grants are really going to make a difference to our continued sustainable management of the budget. And I think it is important to place on record the work that our staff have done. They have responded absolutely to our determination to line up with the recommendations of SIPFA, the government's accountants, to put better budgeting arrangements in place. They've changed their ways of working. They've changed their ways of reporting. They've absolutely joined us in doing what they've been asked to do. And that's not just an easy thing when you've been working in a particular way for a long time and you're dealing with those very frontline demands. But the staff have done it. The meetings that we've had demonstrate that. We can do things better, and we will next time. And I'm really pleased about the open dialogue that we've managed to have with staff, but particularly Richard with CMT in terms of how we can do it better. You know, we've been very open and transparent with each other about that, and it's turned a result. People in Medway can feel much more secure as a result of all of the work that our staff's done and their willingness to join with our leadership priorities to put the council in a sustainable place so that we can do things to improve community life. So I think this is still a work in progress, as all of us are, but it's going in absolutely the right direction.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Simon?
Yeah, thank you. Just sort of picking up Teresa's theme of the right direction. I mean, we kind of sometimes forget the history of what we've had to live through for the last however many years since the word austerity was used, however long ago. And year on year on year on year, local authorities have just had things cut, and service has been cut. And the consequences of that are homelessness and poor food and all the other things that have come with that. And we've almost become sort of used to having things tough all the time and things getting worse year on year. Even our potholes and our public realm and our green spaces, all of those, and the staff have just had to cope year after year with how do we keep things going despite all that. And suddenly the tide is turning. And you can see that. And this government came in very honest. Keir Starmer said there are huge problems. It's not going to be easy. It will take a long time to sort, but we will tackle it. We will, meet it head on and deal with it. And already 6 months into the new government, we're suddenly seeing signs of the green shoots of revival, if you like. I hate to use things like that because it's always a little bit scary. But there is more money for potholes. There is more money for homelessness. That's coming through now, and we are really grateful to the government for turning things around within 6 months. And I'm sure as we go forward, it's going to improve even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon, and colleagues, for your really helpful contributions as always. And as you've all said, this is an ongoing challenge. We knew when we first inherited this council, when we were given the opportunity to serve, we were starting with the fact that we'd had a 91% cut in our revenue support grant. There's change to that. We can see that in the provisional settlement, but also there's other additional funding streams which are helping with that. £5 million extra for potholes in Medway is critical. Whether it's Chatham Hill to City Way, those routes which people value and appreciate, we're getting on with it. We're making people's lives better. There's still more to do. Absolutely, there's still more to do. But rather than snotty letters from ministers, we're getting additional pound notes that we can put straight into the front line. That's the differential a Labour administration makes, working with the Labour administration in places like Medway. So I welcome the provisional settlement. There is still more to do. We're working hard through the SIPFA report. We're looking forward to receiving their second report. That will have a number of recommendations, and I know this Cabinet will look at those carefully when we receive those. But the provisional settlement that we received at the end of last year is another helpful stepping stone as we move towards financial sustainability. With that, are colleagues happy to support the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 8, in Harinder's absence, I will move. Happy to take some contributions on this as well if people feel they wish to. This is a Connect to Work programme. The recommendations are laid out in paragraph 1 to approve the creation of a delivery plan and to delegate authority to the Director of Place to create the delivery plan and launch the Connect to Work programme. And in the current climate, as people will appreciate, this administration have been working closely with the administration of Kent County Council. Different political parties, but actually when it comes to getting stuff done, we will work with anybody who wants to improve the life outcomes for the residents of Medway. This is an exciting programme, and I think one which will make a difference. I want to draw colleagues' attention particularly to paragraph 4.3. And we've all been on doorsteps at different points saying, if only there was something to help this group of vulnerable, disadvantaged people, whether it's serving personnel and veterans, whether it is those who are ex-offenders, carers, you know, this programme and many more, this programme directly will be focusing support on those along with individuals with disability. That's the primary focus, but absolutely if you look at paragraph 4.3, if you were having a programme to try and support people, those individuals, those groups of individuals across Medway would be pretty near the top of the list. So I welcome this programme. Again, we've got two simple options. Do we complete the plan or don't we? Unsurprisingly, I'll be recommending option 1, that we can complete the programme. Of course, it will need the work of our partners. We've got a great working relationship on an operational level with DWP. I think we've had a good relationship with them, certainly throughout the years. Even before May 23, there was that positive relationship that continues. And of course, we'll be working with a number of partners in a practical sense. And if colleagues think back to a well-known pledge card that we had in the run-up to May 2023, it's so long ago, it feels like a lifetime. One of those pledges was around, of course, creating 1,000 new jobs. This programme will directly assist us in making sure we go above and beyond. We've made good progress on that, hundreds of jobs created across Medway, and this will assist us further. Perhaps for those who find it, for lots of very legitimate reasons, a struggle through the employment process, the recruitment process, and the more that we can do to help those individuals, I think is a really positive programme. So I'm really happy to move that for tonight. Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. Thanks to Harinder for bringing this forward. And absolutely, as somebody who's worked a very long time in education, particularly in further and higher education, I welcome the push behind the Connect to Work programme, initially giving 400 people in Medway special attention and support to get into work. It's not just about getting people into work, it's about being ambitious for Medway. It's about saying that everybody, whatever their circumstances, is entitled to realise their potential and deserves support for making sure that they do that. So in addition to the DWP, we'll be working with the college, we'll be working with our own adult education service, we'll be working with other training providers to absolutely maximise access to all of the opportunities for these particular groups of people who are disadvantaged by circumstances, disadvantaged by birth, some of them, others disadvantaged by war and displacement, who have come to Medway and really need a hand up to get them into a position where they can share their skills with everybody, make a contribution to our local economy, and most importantly of all, realise their own potential. So I think you're right to absolutely to draw people's attention to paragraph 4.3, Vince, because it lists there people that, you know, are easy to forget about: care experienced young people in care, refugees, resettled Afghans, people on the Ukrainian scheme, victims and survivors of domestic abuse who might have, you know, suffered a lot of displacement, young people involved in or at risk of serious violence or victims of modern slavery. You know, this is an ambitious programme that doesn't shrink from the problems that some people face. It actually tackles them head on and says, you know, we know of 400 people in a variety of difficult circumstances who we're going to stand around and help step forward. And I'm really looking forward to working with the partners and doing as much as we can as a council to support this programme.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I've got Alex next.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, just to echo support for the group set out in 4.3. I think, you know, obviously, as former Armed Forces champion, I would recognise the challenge faced by ex-servicemen and women when they enter civilian life. They've often done incredible things which are not necessarily recognised in a traditional educational sense. They don't necessarily have qualifications, but they can do so much. They may well not have experience of job interviews, and that can apply to all manner of people who perhaps a generation or more ago went into jobs because that was what their mum or their dad did, and so they never had to encounter that sort of challenge of, so what do you think you can bring to this role? And so to give them those skills is really important. But I think also in my current role as portfolio holder for community safety, to recognise that issue of victims and survivors of domestic abuse, particularly to recognise that some of that abuse may well be financial coercion. The fact that some people, because they do not have financial independence, are therefore under duress of a partner. So giving these skills is a route to freedom in so many ways, whether it's the freedom to buy healthy food, as we've talked about earlier tonight, or simply the freedom to live in a decent home and to lead the lives that we all should have a right to expect to lead. So I'm really pleased to see this, and you know, I think 400 Medway residents, that's going to make a massive impact, and I'm sure we can think of 400 more and another 400 beyond that, but this is an incredibly ambitious start, and I'm really pleased to support this.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Before we move to the vote, I mean, I think I really welcome both the contributions, Teresa, from yourself and from Alex. I think that's absolutely right. One of the good things about this programme, and again, if you think about hard-working officers, Daniel Ratcliffe, not only is leading on this, he's also our Officer Armed Forces champion. So actually, he'll bring together those communities in particular. And I know if, for example, Ruth Dillou, who's here tonight, is a fantastic officer champion for our looked after children. So I think from that perspective, again, we've got individuals who will be advocating both from a political but also from an officer perspective for every group within that list on 4.3. And again, I think it is about saying, you know, people in those circumstances, for lots of very legitimate reasons, will find some of these processes difficult. If we can help open those doors, help improve life outcomes, that's good for the individuals, but it's good for Medway. So therefore, I'm very happy to move this. Are colleagues happy to support the recommendations as laid out? Agreed. Thank you very much. That moves us on to the last agenda item tonight. Zoe, over to you for the Audit Committee Chairperson's Annual Report 23-24. Zoe, over to you.
Thank you. SIPFA requires annual reporting on how the Audit Committee has complied with its position statement, discharged its responsibilities, and includes an account of its performance. The committee's role is to ensure sufficient assurance over governance risk and control with independent scrutiny of the authority's performance. This report sets out the Chairperson's annual report for 2023-24 for noting by Cabinet and can be found at Appendix 1 on pages 181 to 185. Cabinet is asked to note the comments of the committee as set out at Section 6 of the report. Revised terms of reference for the committee were reviewed in January 2023 and approved by full council in January 2024, and I refer Cabinet to Appendix A of the report. The committee approved the counterfraud plan for the coming year and receives regular reports. The work of the counterfraud team between 1st of April to 31st of March 2024 resulted in savings to the council of over £384,000. There have been no concerns raised in relation to anti-bribery or money laundering, and the 5 members of the committee met on 6 occasions during 2023 and 2024.
Thank you very much indeed, Zoe. Any colleague, any questions or comments? I'll come back to you in just a second. I'd say a couple of things. As a former member of the Audit Committee many, many years ago, where we didn't have letters of this nature. I think this is a really good addition to the Medway Council, a kind of package of documents which will be available on an annual basis. Most colleagues will be aware I sit on Kent Fire and Rescue and I chair the audit committee there. The report I produce annually is not quite as detailed as this, so I'm going to take some learning away from that. Spoiler alert for those who are watching from Tovel. And absolutely, I recognise, again, there's a lot of detail in here which just shows the breadth and depth that the audit committee go into. Of course, colleagues will be aware, for example, the work that they do mean that even the conversation here around Treasury management, you know, absolutely recognises the very granular detail they rightfully go into. I know there were some requests around whether this was to go to full council as well. Of course, it will be going to full council as part of this report, which I think, as long as I'm prompt on signing off the minutes, will be in next week's agenda pack, or the agenda pack that will go out for next week. So colleagues there in the leaders report, if they want to refer to this as well, absolutely will have the opportunity to go through that. But I place on record my thanks to not only the officers who give, again, detailed reports. If you've not looked at them, please do detailed reports to the audit committee, but all members of the audit committee, and in particular the chair, Hazel, who does a fantastic job, again, making sure that the systems as well as the individuals are held to account in a very appropriate way, and certainly in good practice guidance in line with that from SIPFA. So I'm very happy to support this letter and look forward to lots of letters in the future years. If there's nobody else, happy to go back to you, Zoe.
Simply to commend the work of the 5 members of that committee and commend the report.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That closes tonight's meeting. Thanks, everybody. you.